And we're live. Hey, what's up, guys? So today we're going to be talking with a couple folks here. I got a guest. We got James from the Toy Room. What is going on, James?
What's up? What's up? How's everybody doing out there?
It's cool, man. So Kongs are us and Michael B. What is up, guys?
Hello, hello.
Well, I'm glad
Hello.
everyone could. I'm glad everyone could join. I want to talk about this topic about are the Arcade1up owners, including us. We're not trying to separate ourselves from the community or versus like all of us in general. Are we collectors? Are we hoarders? Is this an addiction? And of course, I don't mean that in a negative way by any means. Like I find myself reflecting on this quite often. And so I thought I would bring in three of my favorite people that know, that collect way more than me, and try to break it down. And I wanted to start with Michael B, the Game Genie, because I know exactly what questions to ask him. So I'm going to put you in the spotlight here, Michael B. Maybe you can talk to us a little bit real quick about your history. I don't want to say what it is because I don't want to label exactly.
So I started doing YouTube in 2011. I've been a lifelong video game collector, or I guess you call it hoarder to some extent, because there is a level of hoarding with collecting. I mean, it goes hand in hand. So growing up, I kept everything from my video games. I kept all my video games growing up, boxes, manuals, everything. And, I have stuff from all the way back to my first console, which was the NES. I kept everything. So when I started doing YouTube in 2011 and I started really collecting retro games again and watching the community and really trying to join that YouTube community, I already had so much stuff, but then it's so exciting that you could go out, do all the stuff. And at the time, flea market and stuff like that was also cheap. So it was easy to amass a pretty big collection. Like at one point I bought 100 NES cartridges for less than $200, 100 different NES cartridges for less than $200. Right. So I quickly amassed, on top of my lifelong regular collection, a pretty big video game collection as well. And you start getting really excited about opportunities to do full sets. So I started collecting full sets of games because that's part of being a collector too. So I tried to collect full set of the NES library, which is impossible because, the NES Nintendo World Championship gray and gold would cost me 9 livers. And I also started collecting full sets of complete in box, and I mean complete in box TurboGrafx 16 stuff. So I amassed this. I know, right? I amassed this pretty massive video game collection, and it's funny that you mentioned this. Someone actually watched one of my Game Room Tour videos there the other day, and they were like, this is all just crazy, right? Like you could just get a Raspberry Pi and emulate it all. Anything else is just hoarding. It's just clutter. You're wasting your time. And I was like, no, I take offense to that, sir.
Yeah, I think we gotta dive deep on exactly where is that line where you're a collector or hoarder. I did a little bit of research before we jump into that. Let's talk to James now. Now, James, I've known him since about 2018, or at least I was aware of you on YouTube because we were one of the OG. I think I wouldn't even claim I'm an original Arcade1up YouTuber. You came out before me. You're someone that inspired me to get into the topic, actually. So it's great to have you on the show for the first time.
Thank you. So that line of hoarding and collecting, see, hoarders really just stockpile their stuff. It all piles up. It all gets thrown all over the place. Us collectors, we like to organize and put our things on display. So I think that's where the line is drawn. As a collector, you got to make your stuff look nice. If you're just stockpiling stuff just for the sake of having it, then you're basically hoarding. But when you have it nice and organized and everything like that, I think that's really what makes a collection shine. And that's where that line is drawn.
Yeah, maybe you could talk about, while you're on Spotlight, about some of the favorite collections that you've maybe acquired or something you're really proud of. Because I know you showed us before the video started, you have a pretty wide collection of things, right?
Yeah, I have a little bit of everything, really. So I have video games, as you can see next to me. I don't have any full sets, but just throughout the years going to thrift stores and swap shops, swap meets and everything like that, just whatever I could find, I would pick up at a decent price. I also have a bunch of action figures from Star Wars, Back to the Future, Ninja Turtles, Avatar. Then obviously the Arcade1ups behind me. I have a movie collection, basketball collection of just like random jerseys. So I collect a little bit of everything. Just any of my hobbies I just like to collect for. So my collection's pretty like diverse, I would say.
That's pretty cool. We'll come back around to you, man. So B, what's your thoughts on this? Hoarding, collecting, and maybe you want to talk about
absolutely. And
collection.
hearing James about what he collects, that gets dangerous when you have so many things you like and you collect everything. Where for me, I do love a lot of things, but I've decided when I put my collection together of toys in my background, for folks that don't know, one of my biggest anime cartoon series of all time is Macross or Robotech in the US. If you guys have seen it, that's what all this stuff behind me is. I made an Arcade1up into a Macross Arcade1up cabinet there. But Michael B, the game genius. No, it's a real arcade game. They made 3 versions. Macross Plus, amazing shmup. If you've never played it, it's super good. Better than Raiden. It's awesome. Check it out. But yeah, it's about deciding, like you said, James, displaying it and putting it to that when you look at it, you enjoy it. I feel like that's a difference of it. And to Michael B's point, yeah, you could play it on Raspberry Pi, but to physically see it, there was times when I first had my room set up before extra clutter, where I would just sit here and just look. And if you see carefully behind me, these are my most prized Macross toy collections. Each one of these ranges between $100 to $300 each in terms of figures alone. So like, this is not a cheap hobby for this particular collection. And I made little museum arcade post-it little stands for it just so that I could have the labels on which one it is. And I tried to make it where it was spaced out and didn't look too cluttered. So I did a lot of work with, modding this display cabinets for this at first. But it bleeds beyond just Macross. Eventually, I got into collecting Transformers for a long time. Legos are my big passion. So anything transforming things was my big thing. And I would still say to this day, it's my first passion before arcades. And then the arcade stuff happened right around the pandemic time. And then it really took off. So as much as people know me from our arcade hobby, and it's really taken over the last 2-3 years, in my heart, I'm more of a toy collector than I am arcades.
I wish this wasn't Justin's show because I have so much to say after that. So I'm just gonna let it go.
Mike.
No, well, I will tell you, I'm a big Robotech fan as well, Kong, but I only like the first saga, like the what is it? The
Macross Saga. Macross is the original.
That's the only one I like. I didn't really watch the rest of the stuff.
Yeah.
And one of the things I like about your specific collection of Macross and then Transformers is a lot of people don't know this, but the way Transformers worked is basically the American toy companies just robbed a bunch of stuff from Japan. And actually, Jetfire is actually a Macross fighter that they just stole and made a Transformer.
Such a unique story behind that. And they finally released future toys of that as kind of the Skyfire Jetfire combination. Yeah. But they just released, for those Transformer fans, Masterpiece number 57 is a giant Skyfire. So I know we're digressing into main things, but I do Masterpiece collection of Transformers that I can pan over a little bit later on if you want to see the room. But
yeah,
good.
We'll do that in a bit. Now I have to admit, for me, I'm a hoarder. I mean, James said that it's really the difference is your cleanliness, right? And your ability to organize. I just buy stuff. I mean, straight out of, I was looking at AMW. It says, if you're a collector, you're able to make a decision to eliminate or donate items from your home. I can't do that. You don't feel the need to keep things just because. I totally keep things just because. And a hoarder is different than a collector. Hoarders gather random items. I totally do random items because you like them or they're on sale. Yes, I'm a big
That's the key component
for
if you
deals.
get them on sale and on deals.
Yeah. You guys can help me. All I got to do is buy some shelves. I mean, that's why I don't do a game room tour, because you do not want to see my collection, right? I don't know, just trying to be honest here. But have you guys ever been in that situation where it did start to, like someone said, I'm going to go with Mike. We're going to go back with Mike, where someone accused you of being a hoarder? Because I've had that.
Oh, yeah, all the time. Like completely. I don't talk about this much, but I also collect toys. My toy collection is different than a lot of other people's. I collect like G.I. Joe is my main toy collection that I collect. and I don't have anywhere to put them. So right now, like it's sacrilege. Like I have sealed GI Joe toys, like brand new, complete in box, just thrown in garbage bags, put down in my basement because I have nowhere to put them.
Garbage bags. Oh,
Garbage bags. I know
that
it
actually
sucks.
hurts.
Oh my
I know.
gosh.
I know.
So
Tupperware.
Super chat from Goofyfoot. He says, "Just accept it. We are interior designers when it comes to cabinets." I can see that. I can see that. So let's jump into this topic of Arcade1up and compare it to this collector, right? Like when you first started buying the Arcade1ups, and maybe it's different for everybody. I'm not trying to create a narrative and try to everyone agree to it. So just think personally to yourself, right? Did Arcade1up fall into that collector category that you previously had? You know, and I'd really love to hear James on this one. Really curious what your thoughts are.
Yeah, so when I first heard about Arcade1up, it was the Street Fighter cabinet that's behind me over here. And that's really what sparked my interest for Arcade1up because I'm such a big Street Fighter fan. And at the time, I was really just getting started on like building my man cave. So I always wanted an arcade, but arcades are expensive, as you guys know, at least original arcades. So when Arcade1up came around with their more affordable price point, I definitely wanted to jump on it. I had no intentions of picking up multiple cabinets, especially from that wave one. I just wanted Street Fighter and I was done. But then they started dropping stuff like Final Fight and the Marvel superheroes and all the other amazing titles. And now, now I own these plus the Pac-Man one that's on the other side of me, which I just picked up on clearance. So, because they're more expensive, I think it's a little bit harder, at least for me personally, to want to collect all of them. But it's not one of those things where I can only have one because they're so amazing. They're so cool. I definitely want to get as many as possible.
Yeah, I think you're doing pretty good as a collector because you're able to make decisions, eliminate your
Right.
purchases, be very selective. But let's
Yeah.
jump to
Well,
the.
oh, no. I was just going to say, like, once I start running out of room, I definitely get rid of some stuff that I don't necessarily care about as much as maybe I did when I purchased it 5 years prior. So I definitely have that luxury of just being able to sell stuff I don't need to make room for new items.
All right, let's see the polar opposite of that, Mr. Michael B. What do you have to say to that?
So yeah, there's definitely some massive addiction issues with me with collecting, and especially when you have the resources, room, and they're available. That's what I found myself into. I started much like Toycade. I went out. Toy Room. I went out that first Black Friday when the Arcade1up cabinets went on sale. That's how I justified it. It was going to be on sale. It was $3.49 Canadian. Where I don't know, they were $2.99 American originally. So I went out and I bought that Street Fighter cabinet, and I said, "That's it. That's the one cabinet I'm going to get." And I stuck with that for well over a year until the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles cabinet came out, and I was like, "Well, I mean, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles." I started seeing like wrestlers that I follow were going out and getting them, and I was like, "I got to get it as well." Came out a little later here in Canada, so I pre-ordered it through AtGames. That's when I got addicted and I got hooked. So I found out I could get a Final Fight cabinet here in Canada because they didn't sell them regularly here in Canada. I ordered that, ordered Mortal Kombat, and then the wheels went off everything. As soon as I saw cabinets, like even stuff that I didn't have nostalgia for, I started picking them up because I was interested and I was excited, and then it became all about getting the next one and how fun the hobby was of building an arcade. Like that took over the hobby. It wasn't just about buying cabinets anymore. It was about building an arcade in my basement. And now I'm out of room, out of money, so I'm more selective.
Oh man, what do you think, B?
It's legit an addiction. Just like everybody had mentioned, it starts with one. It always starts with one. It's something that you like, and you're like, hey, this is affordable. And if you get it at a sale point price, I think my first Street Fighter 2 cab, to James's point, was an Amazon Lightning sale. $175. I'm like, I'm dropping $300 for this little mini toy. I can spend $200 on an arcade just to have the one and be happy with it. And then it went to Star Wars and TMNT were my like three, like, hey, I really want Star Wars and that, and modded those. And then I got a Pac-Man, and then now I have I think I also have about like 9 to 10 Arcade1ups, a full-size pinball machine. And then I started watching arcade auctions. So I have a garage arcade that I moved into full-size arcades too that I don't really do much content on, but it definitely sparked this wave of getting more and more at like similar price points. And here's where I started like really having trouble with my collection and addiction, is that as space was an issue, I would sit here and look at my room and be like, all right, if I remove these 2 shelves, I can fit 3 Arcade1ups under here, get rid of the Legos, give them to my kids. And then one day I was outside looking at my hardly ever used den with a couch and a TV that we never sit in. And I was just like, one day I was like, if I just like sold the couch and just like moved in like while the wife was working. So that's a story. Like while she was working, I put up the couch for sale because I had mentioned to her, and like out goes the couch and in goes my arcade, and it's been there ever since.
Oh my
See,
gosh.
that's the true test when you've reached the addiction level, is when you get rid of that couch. And that's when it was for me, because I had this really nice game room downstairs with like leather chairs and like a big TV set up and all my consoles and this couch. And the minute I let my couch go, that's when sanity went out the window and I started buying arcades like crazy.
Yeah, the
Wow.
couch takes up so much real estate, because then
Yeah.
like how do you sit and enjoy that at the same? It made no sense to have a couch in an
Right.
arcade,
Right.
so it had to go. And I finally, I think 2 months ago, got rid of the TV that was still in my arcade, because then it didn't make sense to have the TV in there. And I'm like, great, now I have another wall of space, so it's gonna happen.
The only I do like having a TV in my arcade, but not the same way. I got to get a smaller TV. It's nice to have it up on the top of the wall and have like I love what 19K Fox does with the
just kind of background stuff.
90s MTV stuff playing on loop and just like background music and stuff, because that's something you would see in an arcade or a barricade back in those days.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, that's pretty cool. Yeah, for me, it's kind of interesting. I was thinking in 2018, I was finishing my basement. And so once the basement was done, my plan was to get a full-size arcade. And so I told my wife, I'm going to get a full-size arcade, but I'm thinking I'm going to go with a custom one, because I wasn't aware of anywhere in Iowa where I live that I could acquire an arcade. I didn't have that knowledge. And little did I know later that there's the closest arcade to me. He owns 400 arcades. You can buy them from him. There's auctions here in town twice a year where you can get them as low as, I think I paid $150 for an arcade. But anyway, I told her I was just going to get one arcade custom, and I was going to have it custom built, because there was a company called Des Moines Arcade, and Des Moines Arcade sells arcades to real arcades, like brand new. And I was going to reach out to the guy and be like, can you build me a custom? Because he said he does that. And I was going to have him do like a Donkey Kong custom or a Play Choice. I was just going to get the one. It was going to cost me about $2,000. That's it. And then Arcade1up came out, and I told my wife, well, I'll just get one Arcade1up, because if it sucks, it's only a $200, $300 loss, and then I'll just buy that full-size arcade. Next thing you know, I have 10 plus Arcade1ups, and now I have 10 plus full-size arcades, because I was able to find a way to get them for pretty cheap. So I don't know. It's definitely an addiction and a hoarding. Like, at this point, I feel like it's stock when it comes to the full-size arcade, because I justify to myself, I'm going to buy that full-size arcade, and it'll keep its value. Whereas if it's in the savings, maybe it won't keep its value, if you know what I mean. I don't know. Maybe that's a really bad justification.
I don't really understand you closet full-size arcade owners like you and B, and like I've got other friends too. They got a bunch of full-size arcades, and then they're making all these videos on Arcade1ups, and I'm like, that's only half the story. Why aren't you telling the rest of it?
Because it's a lot of work to maintain them and have them in a place to really showcase. It's actually really dreadful, my real arcades, because half of them aren't working, and they're pretty much storage space. I have boxes on top of my Virtual, which really hurts, and my Star Wars Pod Racer. So here's my thing about my full-size arcades. Since I personally felt like emulation and running a lot of games that I could play on some of these machines, I was like, I want unique arcades that I cannot play anywhere else. So that's why I was like, all right, I want something that's like a unique controlled one. So Virtual dual stick, really awesome robot game. Really was like I remember this game. Pod Racer, I just accidentally bought because it was on sale for $400, and I was like, nobody's gonna bid on this. It's broken, and I was like, it would be cool to mod it. And then my third big arcade game is called Gunman Wars. Nobody's heard of it, but it's this amazing kind of rail shooter, and like it's a unique controlled games that take up a ton of space. I have 3 of them in my garage, and it's a half garagecade. So someday, soon, I hope it'll happen.
Well, now I want to jump us into this the Toy Room did a video on the. Let's see. I want to change it this way. We got the community pretty excited about this. I'm going to play a portion of it, invite the audience to watch the rest, but maybe we can get James' take on it. It is in Miami because, James, you live in Florida. He was able to do a tour of the biggest hoarders in town, and it's the ones that make the Arcade1ups, and they have their own shop down in Florida. And some people have been speculating, why Arcade1up is doing it, but you yourself, James, you saw it, so I'd love to put you on spotlight here and tell us, make sure you're like kind of in the middle there so you can talk us through this. What was it like seeing this real Arcade1up arcade?
Yeah. So honestly, before going there, I didn't really know like what exactly it was. They didn't really advertise much of what it was, and they still really haven't, which is a little weird to me. But I didn't know what I was getting into before going there. So once I got there, I was like, "Oh, okay, this is essentially just a barcade, but with a lot, not all of their offerings. There was, Killer Instinct was missing, Terminator, a bunch of their cabinets were missing, but they had a majority of them." And it's basically just one big open space where you just come and free play and hang out, play with strangers, bring your friends, play with them. So yeah, it was a ton of fun. I was speaking with David from Arcade1up, and they said they're testing it out right now. So they're gonna see what the reception is, and if it's successful, they'll keep it. If not, they'll probably just shut it down eventually and just try something else. But I haven't been back since the opening event, but you'll see at the end of this video, there was a ton of people that actually showed up. I don't know how many of them were actually there for the event or just happened to be down in Miami at the time, because where it's located, it's this big like tourist area of Miami. So it could have just been just people there by coincidence, but there was a ton of people by the time that I left.
Yeah, before we get any further, I definitely want to give a shout out for those in the chat not familiar with the Toy Room. Go check him out. This is his logo. It's kind of like what Toy Story? Yeah, a little bit Toy Story.
Oh my God, that's from Toy Story. I never would have put that together.
About this video, the thing that I found the coolest when I saw all the arcades, I was like, okay, that's kind of cool. It was the pinball, actually. Seeing these pinball machines all lined up next to each other, that's what pulled me in to be like, that feels like an arcade. I don't know if that's just what you captured on video, but in person, did it kind of did that area of pinballs feel different than the rest of it, or?
Well, I mean, it was gonna feel unique from everything else because of it is pinball, and the rest of them were your standard arcade. So, and they were in their own little section, so it did feel a little bit different going over to that section. And they had 2 Marvel and 2 Star Wars pinballs set up, so it was a ton of fun. I don't think that we're getting as much love as some of the other arcades, probably because those are single player games over there versus the other ones. You're playing multiplayer with others. So, but I did enjoy playing it. I checked out the Marvel one. It was my first time actually like dealing with it, and it was pretty solid. But I'm not a big fan of the digital pinball. I like physical pinball machines.
This is what really got me thinking, James, about that is, again, when it comes to collecting, hoarding, whatever you call it, do you think this grand opening event, like, people are going to come there and that will, I don't know, did it feel like it would be something that people could go to and kind of figure out, like, whether they wanted to buy it or not, and then make a purchase?
I mean,
I don't even know how that purchase would take place.
Yeah, so I don't think you can actually buy anything there, especially given the location, because they don't have like a parking lot where you can just pull up and park your car. You have to park your car either on the street or in a parking garage. For me, I was about a 10-minute walk. So to carry one of these cabinets for 10 minutes, you're going to break your back. But they did have QR codes on the wall where I guess it takes you to Arcade1up's website, and then you can just order it online if you wanted to do that. But like for me, it was great because I got to play so many of the cabinets that obviously I don't own. So just getting to try those out, it may influence me to buy, the Street Fighter Legacy cabinet or the Mortal Kombat Legacy cabinet. Just being able to physically go in there and play it, I think, is a game changer. But I don't know how this location is going to drive sales. I don't know how much that's going to actually affect it.
Yeah. I think even Arcade1up doesn't know, exactly how it's going to work.
Yeah.
Mike, I can read your face. You got something you want to say. You're muted, Mike. This is like a Zoom.
I'm sorry. My daughter was screaming in the background, so I had to mute. So I have to ask a question. David McIntosh was there. Was he wearing like a white suit with eyeliner, and did he have to make a really crazy speech?
No, he had on a red T-shirt and jeans, I
Oh, okay.
believe.
Okay. So
But he was
there was no
just
pyramid type tablet there at any point, was there?
not at all. He was just there in the background, honestly. He didn't make any speeches or anything. I just happened to recognize him from seeing
Yeah.
him over the years, so I chatted up with him for a few minutes.
So I think there's definitely an opportunity for this store. I make a lot of comparisons to the Saber store just for jokes, but like I love the idea of being able to physically go. I wish they did have stock because I think Arcade1up. I know that in retail it's really hard to actually get retailers to carry them, but there's an impulse buy to this, especially even though it's a big product like $500-600. There's a huge yes. Justin knows what I'm talking about. So there's a huge impulse buy to this thing. So if they had physical cabinets, it would definitely be a boon for them to be able to sell them there. But I get that location's a problem. Maybe they could work something out where David McIntosh just pulls around the corner in a van and sells you some hot cabinets right out of the van.
Want a countercade? Right here, baby.
One thing I really love the idea of what I'd like to see them implement is it's cool that you can go there and it's like an arcade to test out stuff, but they should make it kind of like a beacon of Arcade1up and have like really weird shit there too. So if they have like test cabinets that like never ever made it to retail or just weird stuff like that, or like products that never came out that they do have working builds of, that's the kind of stuff I'd like to see there too. Like make it half.
Well, they do have some countercades that haven't been released.
That's right.
Yeah, so
Yeah, I saw that Tempest, Joust, and that Street Fighter one. I can't tell from the video, but did the marquee light up in that, or was it like a solid wood marquee in the Street Fighter countercade?
on the countercade, I don't think it lit up, but I honestly don't remember.
So I'm thinking that's a demo one as well.
Really?
Yeah.
I mean, would they knowingly put out a demo unit, or is it just like they went back to the warehouse and just started grabbing everything?
That's kind of what I was going to say. I don't know if it was a plan so much because we know like John D was like, hey, anybody in California got an NBA Jam? So sometimes I think they just get what they get.
Yeah, I think sometimes, because I had heard they had so what Arcade1up does is in certain states they've shipped Arcade1up cabinets and then they store them in a warehouse. And they stored them in a warehouse because they did an event like in LA. And they're like, okay, let's store them in a warehouse. We'll pay for the warehouse. And then if we do another event, we just grab a U-Haul and we can go pick them up and take them to the event. And their corporate offices now moved to Florida. So I wonder if eventually they just started all of the cabinets that they would put at the different CES and E3. Those are probably the machines, right? And then
there's 4 NBA Jam XL promos somewhere in a warehouse in Carson. So yeah, along with the 18-foot one, it's permanently there.
Didn't they sell the 18-foot one? Oh, no, not the. I think it was the original NBA Jam is what I'm thinking. Or did they mod it?
It's the first. So it's the same. It's the same one that was originally at CES several years ago. So they still owned it and kept it. The 16-foot NBA Jam giant one.
Oh, wow.
And then I asked when I was at the Shack event in LA, I said, where are these all going? It's like, oh, back to the warehouse. I was like, there is a warehouse somewhere with 4 working XL cabinets. And they were pretty much almost finished product at that point. I didn't see anything that looked sort of testy. But I assumed that the Miami location was probably the stock that we saw from that CNET video with Michael's favorite girl, Bridget, that was doing that video of walking around, showing off the goods. But there were some cabs in there, like the Dragons There promo that had like a different looking, just mock up. And there was another like collab arcade that was in the background of that place too. So I feel like a lot of that stock probably makes more sense to be in a public space to have them. And to your point, Michael B, even if they couldn't do the big size cabs, walking away with a countercade or something that's small, I feel that would be a really smart move. I saw some boxes in there though, James. You saw the Dragons There box. Did that look like it was there because of stock or?
Honestly, I was trying to figure that out. I'm not really sure. It looks like they just put boxes there to create a wall more than anything else, because there was definitely something on the other side of that wall. And I know their offices are actually on the second floor of that building.
Look at all those Supreme cabinets.
And They also have a trailer, giant Arcade1up trailer, and outside, right parked right in front of the location, which I'm assuming houses the rest of their stock that they have down here.
Right.
Hmm.
Yeah, I think you're right. I bet these machines that you're talking about,
Hmm.
this is definitely their corporate office, right? This looks like the Arcade1up Florida corporate office. But I wonder if
Hmm.
those machines are actually the machines that are at that store, maybe.
Some of them might have made it there. Makes
But there
sense.
is, remember those ones in the background, like this crazy Pac-Man that didn't make it, evidently.
Well, I don't
Yeah.
think they, if I remember correctly, I don't think the big blue one was there when I
Mm.
went.
He didn't have a big blue. Did they
Not
have a Tron?
not
Did
that
they
I
have any of the big
remember.
cats?
No Tron, no Big Blue,
Wow.
no
Okay. Interesting.
Terminator, no Killer Instinct, no Dragon's Lair that was out on display. They just had like it's still in the
Mm-hmm.
packaging. What else were they missing? They had a majority of them, but they were missing some heavy hitters.
Mm,
Yeah,
I see.
that's crazy. It makes me wonder. Like, I'm gonna ask this question to Michael B. Right, with this many cabinets, right? Well, since you own so many of them, right? But I was thinking about it. That's probably what makes the question so a valid question. Like, are you a collector? Like, you can't be a collector. You cannot be a collector if there's only one of something, right? I mean, this is
Yeah.
kind of basic logic, but that's why you collected like the NES cartridges and the TurboGrafx 16. There's so many of them, and then they have value, right?
Well, there's another side to it too that we haven't talked about yet, and it's one of the things that Arcade1up have said they're the purveyors of, and the whole like classic toys and stuff like that. The reason why it's so amazing to collect them is there's all this nostalgia, and you think about like when you're a kid and you walk into Toys R Us and you see a wall of Nintendo games there, and you're like, can you imagine being able to own all of them? And then you flash forward like 20 years and you're like, hey, I'm an adult. I got a pile of expendable income. You know what? I think I am going to own all of them. I'm going to do that. So there is like this whole nostalgia thing. And Arcade1up, for me, that's kind of what they hit the head on. Like I like you said, Justin, I didn't know I could buy arcades. Well, I literally can't. I live on an island. Like it's impossible to get arcade stuff here. So Arcade1up enabled me to go get arcade cabinets. Sure, they're toy recreations, and sure, the buttons aren't very good, which everybody will say, but they still allowed me to build an arcade in my basement, which is something like, Kid Mike was saying, walking into the arcade, can you imagine having like this in your house?
Right.
And then adult Mike said, yeah, I've got the money, room. I'm going to do that.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's part of it. I had this one thought. I might be crazy, but it's kind of, I was building the thumbnail for this video, and I started thinking, like, I'm drawing this circle, collectors, gamers, and hoarders. I got a set of cabinets on the left, set of cabinets on the right, and I almost had it where the arrows for, like, you're a collector. In my head, I was like, if you buy Tron, T2, or Dragon's Lair, that means you're a collector. But if you buy Pac-Man, Mortal Kombat, or NBA Jam, that means you're a gamer. But if you own all of them, that means you're a hoarder. But I don't know. Maybe that's crazy, but there was something to it. Hear me out for a second. I think if you were to buy Tron, right? If you were to buy T2, you're going to buy Dragon's Lair. Those have very few games, right? Like there is something different about that compared to, say, like the Big Blue. And all three of those cabinets are more for collectors, I think, because they have a unique shape. Like it's really, I don't know, maybe I'm not a collector, so I wouldn't know because I'm a hoarder, as we've established. But is there any truth to anything, or does anyone have any
I think
different
so.
views?
Yeah, that actually does make sense to me. When Tron came out and I saw how it looked, it's actually the arcade game itself was something I never played as a youth. But so from a nostalgia standpoint, I didn't have it. But from a collector standpoint, I was like, it's gorgeous from a home arcade standpoint. And it's the exact same reason why I pre-ordered Dragon's Lair, because as a collector of wanting nice looking cabinets in my arcade, and I've said this many times, I am a shallow home arcade collector. I like the way my stuff looks. I literally sit here and will look at my toy collection. I'll do the same in my arcade room once it's all set up. So I think you have a point there, specifically with those two cabs. T2, probably similar. I have some other thoughts about the gameplay for those, but otherwise those two cabinets are absolutely gorgeous. I couldn't get past T2 being, pick up light guns. So that was one of my things.
That was the tough thing, B, on that one,
Mhm.
because on a one game arcade cabinet, there's no excuse not to do everything in the world. Like you can always make the argument like, oh, we had to change the control panel to accommodate the other games, or you had to, put the wrong screen on to accommodate the other games. But when it's one game, how do you not go out of your way to make it perfect? So it sucks. But I mean, that was the Terminator 2 we were getting. That's the gun game I wanted more than anything else. So I couldn't resist. So I did want to say one other thing. B, you said youths. Here on this panel, we've all watched My Cousin Vinny, so we say Ute. Ute.
Got it.
Ute.
So here's the weird thing. Bill mentions if you're a true collector, essentially, then you need to buy the Collectorcade, which is really interesting because we've established that collecting Arcade1ups is a part of the hobby, right? We have on the panel here many people that are collectors, but why is it that the Collectorcade is something that no one's interested in? This new leak that came out that Arcade1ups, I gotta go to Mike on this one to start.
So I made a video earlier today called Dead Arcade1up Products. And even though the Collectorcade isn't out yet, I put it on that list.
Did you?
I did. I don't know what to think of this product. It's like people sitting around a boardroom who have no idea what their fan base is or what purchasers would want to buy. Like, I don't understand why you would make a miniature version of an Arcade1up cabinet, which no one has nostalgia for Arcade1up cabinets. They have nostalgia for the original arcade, and that doesn't look like an original arcade. Then the fact that you can't even put an arcade ROM on a small arcade cabinet. Why build it or sell it in the first place? Like, it's just everything is wrong with it. And I don't know if any thought went into it. I mean, they would have been better off doing those mini TV and Super Nintendo consoles, or even just like a fake video game console if they're going to do the console ports. I think that would have sold better. I'm just baffled with this product. I don't know who this is for.
Yeah, I think you nailed it on there, because I don't know. Could you guys think, maybe James or Kong, is there anything that you collect where if the company, or maybe they have, just came out with just a horrible version of something cheap, it's plastic instead of metal, or something that the community just was turned off by? Because I think that's what this Mortal Kombat is. It's got the Genesis versions on it for $99. But it looks like an arcade, and it makes sense why they did that, because for that price point, of course, they're probably only spending about $25 to make these, and then getting their margin, and then 50%, or I don't know how much for wholesale or whatever. But $99 is their price point. They're going to use what's called an NES on a chip, which is ASIC, which is just mass produced, and they're like pennies or $1 or something instead of $10 or $20 for a PCB. And so those NES on a chip literally can only play like Sega Genesis games. That's about as high as they can go. But I don't know. Is there a connection or in the collector space? I see James going, no. Like Arcade1up just screwed up.
I mean, yeah, pretty much for me, if the product's not good, just because I'm a fan of, some of their other stuff, I'm not going to pick up every single thing that they release just because it's Arcade1up. The product still has to be good. And not even just Arcade1up, just anything that I collect in general. If the product's not good, just because I'm a fan of the company and the work you do, I'm not picking it up just for the sake of picking it up.
Wow.
I started down that path though. Once I started getting some of the full-size Arcade1ups, I was like, I saw the counter arcades, and I had to at least explore it and see. So I ended up picking up, I think, 2 or 3 counter arcades. I still have my Miss Pac-Man down there because I didn't have a full-size Miss Pac-Man yet. I was like, I'll be happy with that. And then now I've been slowly getting rid of them because after I've experienced them, they weren't for me. I had to figure it out. And to your point about the newest collector arcades, I think the true market really is the super casual person still that has nostalgia for the brand, for the title, that doesn't know better. Like, it wasn't until I started getting deep into the hobby that I realized what a midway shaped cab really looked like, or like I knew what a big blue was. I didn't know those terms and what it should look like. I would have just seen the Mortal Kombat and said like, oh shit, I remember the artwork and the design and the button layout. Then I remember the shape of a cabinet. So I think we are special in the sense that as true collectors, you can be like, oh, there's a little piece on the floor. That's the gun from Optimus Prime. Like you know that level of detail about arcade cabinets versus Arcade1up, their true market. The shark fin designs, they never resembled anything, but they were still cool and sold tons because it was there. So I think there's a level of casual. They're still trying to reach that mass point.
Yeah, so I want to jump in on that, B. You said that so well, and we went through this when we all made the video saying collector arcades are shit. Some Arcade1up.
Everybody made that video? Oh.
Yeah, pretty much. Stalwarts and big fans did come out, and they made really good points. Arcade1up's not trying to compete with Numbskull Quarter Arcades. They're not trying to compete with Replicate here. They're trying to compete with
shit.
Yeah, but they're not trying to compete with that. They're trying to compete with that junk that you see in the store. What is it, like Tiny Arcade and stuff like that? And My Arcade, that's who they're competing with this product. So you're 100% right. But I find the funny thing about this is it's called a collectorcade, even though it's not for collectors. Maybe it should have been called the casualcade.
You got to add a new level console kits. It's hoarder, collector, Michael B, and then the casual.
Yeah.
I don't know. So maybe if you got a minute, maybe we start with B. You want to show off your collection, and what are we talking about? You were talking about I see a little bit behind you, but I think you said, "Oh my gosh."
Okay, all right. So I switched over. So
sure
here's
a hoarder.
Well, the boxes say hoarder for sure because I have my Optimus Primes that I opened up and I haven't put on display yet. So
before you do anything else, B, I'm sorry to jump in here. Before you answer a question on whether or not you're a hoarder, why don't you show us your Arcade1up Infinity Game Table Founders Edition?
Are you trying to say that I collect things and don't use them, Michael B? Is that what you're
No, I'm not saying that at all. Why don't you show us where it is?
There's my beautiful Arcade1up Infinity Game Table. My $1,000 Arcade1up Infinity Game Table is a beautiful stand for my Star Wars what is the Mandalorian ship right there. So there it is. James said a really funny thing too, by the way. Here's my closet, and look at the box collection that I have of my Macross toys. So those toys behind me were $100 each, and I'm not throwing away $100 boxes for toys in case I ever need to move them. So my closet in my attic is full of boxes for everything too. So this is my main desk with the small desk shit, and then behind me again is some Arcade1ups, my Macross collection there, that giant Unicron from Hasbro, HasLab. And then that whole wall is Transformers. So it's not what you think it is. It's not every single Transformer ever made. There's a very rhyme and reason. The whole top shelf is Optimus Primes. Everything inside the glass shelf is a Masterpiece Transformer. I used to be really into a line of Transformers called Binaltex and Alternators, which were based off of early 2000s real cars. And then I have my Gestalts down there, the Devastators and Superion. So it all makes sense, though. I collect only certain Transformers, and it's helped. And I've stopped after a while because there's so much new stuff that keeps coming out. It's crazy. I think that's the hard thing about being a collector. At some point in time, you have to think about, when do you stop? When does it stop? And it's hard for a collector to have that mentality, because there's times where I'll see new stuff and I just I want it, but I can't. I'm really at the point where I have boxes of stuff that I've not opened up. And yeah, that trash bag is packaging peanuts because I have to ship out stuff. But all right, so that's the collection. Thanks for letting me show off my toys.
Yeah, I was wondering, B, on your channel here, do you have a playlist where it's your collector playlist? I'm trying to.
I haven't done any much content on toys. I think I've done 2 episodes of live streams where I've talked about toys, and there were some of my lowest toy counts. I did a live unboxing of that Unicron with Cool Toy, and I did one other show recently where I just said, "Am I collecting too much?" But sorry, I don't have a dedicated playlist for toys. I need to though at some point.
Yeah, that would be good. And then what I need from you is to teach me. You got to like how to become a collector 101, right? But what shelves? I've got lost in watching videos from, I'm trying to think who it was, maybe Norman, and then a few other Game Dave, I think he has a couple where he's just talking about like literally how exactly which material that he uses to
For
hang his
displays?
NES
Yeah.
cartridges
So
on.
here's a component of collecting that we haven't touched upon yet. The hunt. Right, any collector can resonate with the hunt for whatever white whale that you want and what you'll do to hunt and try to get that item, whether or not it's searching every single day. I used to really hunt Walmarts and Targets for toys that I would look for. So the hunt, even for Arcade1up, sometimes it's one of the reasons why a lot of people pre-order, because they won't want to. That's the FOMO aspect of things.
Yeah.
So, like, what do you think about the hunt aspect of collecting? Is that a big portion of it too?
You Arcade1up people have no idea how easy you have it, because there aren't Arcade1up scalpers out there. There are at Walmart toy scalpers. You're like, oh yeah,
$50
cool, real,
hoarders and scalpers. There are,
yeah,
for
real.
sure.
You're like, oh cool, real Ghostbuster toys are coming back out. I'll get some of those. Good luck.
I want to hear James' thoughts on the hunt.
So I'd love the hunt. Anytime that I can avoid having to pre-order a figure and just wait to find it in store. There's just something about going to the store. It's a weird thing because you go to the store, you might find it, you might not, but that's the whole thrill of it. I think it's hard to explain to somebody who hasn't experienced it before, but there's nothing I love more than back in the day hitting up Toys R Us's, or today Walmart's and Targets and any other stores, even thrift stores as well, because you definitely never know what you're going to find at a thrift store.
Oh yeah.
There's just weirdest
something
place
exciting
you
found
about
an Arcade1up. Where's the weirdest place a store has sold an Arcade1up? Because there's some weird stores.
Me personally, I haven't seen any weird stores that I can think of, at least in my area. It's usually just like the Walmarts. I think I've seen them only once ever in store in person at Target. It's typically just Walmart's, Best Buys, and then
There was
maybe
golden
at like
tees at Marshalls at one point for $150
Huh.
when they're on clearance. So there's like weird random stores that used to get 1-ups. Not anymore, but I mean, like, to your point, I was going at one point hunting for Arcade1ups at Marshalls and Ross's because there was rumors that they showed up for like $150 there. But
So
mileage
I don't
may
know if you
vary.
guys have ever heard of Retro Rick. He's a friend of mine of the channel, and he actually found a golden tee at, I think it was a Goodwill. This was about a year or so
Whoa.
ago, but he found one at a Goodwill for like under $20, I think, in like immaculate condition.
I'm waiting for the first dumpster dive video of an Arcade1up cabinet. Were you guys on YouTube for the big dumpster dive?
I remember they
excitement
were
period?
Yeah, they were doing them for GameStops.
Yeah.
I remember that.
Yeah, I found that video. Here it is for sure. It's Retro Rick, and here he is, golden tee at $16.
$16, and it worked. It worked
Craziness.
perfectly. It was in perfect condition. Just somebody got rid of it.
Yeah, like Big Lots. I saw somebody that said something about TJ Maxx. Like they were on
Oh,
clearance. That was like
yeah.
that was a true hunt. If you're an Arcade1up collector and you were hunting, there was now like 5 or 6 stores you had to go to and check out. I don't know if you have those on your list of deals, console kits, if that's ever one of the things that you would add.
Maybe,
Yeah.
maybe I could look into that. I think
Scrape
so.
into
I
it.
think I probably could actually.
I don't
So-
think they do it anymore.
I just want to ask a quick question, because B, we talked about this the other day, and I know this is Justin's show, so I'm just going to take over.
That's
So
fine.
it's interesting because you have all these other hobbies, and like I talked about your shame space of your full arcades out in your garage. You have all these other toys. Why don't you make videos on it more? Is it that you're concerned it won't draw enough interest? Like, are you motivated by YouTube to make what gets a result, or are you motivated by YouTube to make stuff that you're passionate and you're interested in doing? It's always a weird mix. Like for me, I give a lot of my interest in what I do with YouTube credit to Justin and Ralph and like all these people that used to have inside information, because like I would constantly watch people like breaking like rumors and news. I wanted to know about what was coming out from Arcade1up. So like I like doing that because that's what I liked watching. But I like also making videos, like me and my daughter putting toys out there. Sure, I get shit views, but it's not going to stop me from making them.
Yeah.
Like, do you think that maybe sometimes we're a little bit nervous to talk about everything we like because we're worried it's not going to get the attention we would normally get from a video?
That's a YouTube soul searching question there in terms of what content you want to make versus kind of what you think will be popular out there and what's needed. And, for me, my original goal of my channel. I named it Kongs R Us to think I could be a general channel to like share what I love passionately with my family, and that's why I still have them as part of my logo and do unboxings and videos of them. The arcade thing just took off, and so that's where I've really grown that niche. And I truly do love that type of content and the tutorials where half my videos to start. I think I would like to do more toy content, but I think when I started watching YouTube, I was influenced by home arcade folks like Justin and Ralph and you and folks about, you know, covering the topic. And, you know, I've watched some toy reviews, and I think I don't think I found, you know, other toy reviewers that I like to emulate. So I don't think it's hard for me to figure out like what my niche would be in reviewing a toy. I think I tried to do some early unboxings live, which is a little bit different. But for my home arcade content, it's like, all right, here's my outline of what I want to cover for an arcade, and here's my niche. I'm going to tell other people how to mod it. People, that's my voice on that. For toys, I don't do much modding. I kind of like set and display. So to Justin's point, you earlier asked like, you know, what is that 101 portion of collecting? And maybe for me, it's like, how do you display stuff? How do you combine some things? How do you do, somebody said interior design with things. So maybe if I find my voice more in that toy space, I would be more motivated to make more content. But I haven't found that soul searching question about why, but I do like it. I pick up new toys like this. This is my new favorite baby. Did anybody recognize this? No, it's not RC. It's
Really?
from the third generation of Robotech that you hate. It's the Cyclone that transforms from a motorcycle.
That's why I didn't know, because you stopped watching Robotech after Macross.
Yeah. So this is Rook. They've never made her ever, and this is a freaking $200 toy, but it's freaking amazing. So
your wife is a saint, you know that, right?
Yeah.
So that's an interesting thing. You're talking about B. You know, you have this handheld. You got something that you can hold in your hand that's $200.
Yeah,
and then cool. You know, that's why you said that line of like, you know, you kind of got into Arcade1up because of the justification of like, I spend that much money on something very small, you know, that has value to you, and then, you know, you bought an Arcade1up. Now, does it have that same value though? I'm curious about that.
Yeah, the Arcade1ups, I don't know. Like it's harder for them to keep their value. I think, right? There's been a lot of resale for the newer versions coming out. They haven't reached that point where they hold value. I don't think anything's ever gone up except for the one that was at low quantity. The Marvel vs. Capcom, I think, and Star Wars right now are like some of the only ones that are over retail. That because there was people that still want them, and those cabs at the time were a lot. But beyond that, yeah, I don't think they're as, from a collector standpoint, a good value to hold on to. I think 10, 20 years from now, I'm really curious if they're still going to hold up, and if we're still going to be talking about these from I don't know if anybody's made content about the end game of all this, but do you think there is an end game for this collection? When is this portion of it going to hit its limit?
I think that's a thumbnail that you need to make, B. That's an entire show.
That's an interpretation. But from a collector standpoint, that's part of it too. Go ahead, James.
Yeah, I just wanted to touch on what you were saying about, you know, not necessarily knowing if you wanted to make toy videos or how to make toy videos. And this goes for everybody. I find even though the videos you may want to make may not get the views, as long as you're enjoying making those videos, I think that's all that matters. Views might come, views might not, but there's been a ton of videos that I've had where I didn't necessarily expect to get a ton of views just because it may be a little different from what I normally do. And a lot of the random videos that I might make actually end up getting views for no reason whatsoever. I don't know why, but I think that's the biggest thing for everybody on YouTube. Don't necessarily just chase the views. Just be happy with the content that you're making.
James, I think we're going to become fast friends.
Yeah.
Looking forward to it.
I like it.
I wonder if that's the hunt. You know, you're like, hey, I'm going to make content, and some of them don't get great views. You know, that's like going to the store and you didn't find it, but every now and then it's there, and you're like, hey.
I have a video that it was a Pac-Man board game that I just randomly did a video on, and right now it's my highest viewed video, and it almost has 1 million views, which again, I don't know why. It was just a random video that I did. I didn't expect anything of it, and then out of nowhere it just took off. It was like about 2 years ago, but
Wow.
Yeah.
Cool.
So have you made reviews on older toys you've gotten though? So from like the time it takes to edit and film something, I have a stuff that I've, a toy review for something that came out like years ago. I just
Yeah,
like while I still have
that's the
passion about it,
I've done
where would
that.
you do that?
Yeah. Yeah, so I've done that before.
Mhm.
The thing with toys, as with anything, if you're reviewing a newer product that just released recently, you're obviously going to get more views. But if you do a review on something, let's say from a couple years ago or whatever, it may not do as well. It'll still get decent amount of views,
Something.
just depending, who's searching for it. But I know you were saying you didn't really like know your outline of how you would do like a toy video. Depending what you're doing, it's actually not too hard, especially if you're just doing a review. You're just going to want to obviously show off the box to start with, and then get into the actual product, go over the pros and
Accessories,
cons.
things.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the details on it, any pros and cons you might have if you wanted
Do you have a
to.
rating for how you do your final like outcome of stuff? I haven't really seen. Some people used to say like this is a 9 out of 10 or like do really things. My
Yeah, I not really. So what I do is I start with the box, go do an overview of the packaging that it comes with. Then I'll get into the accessories and the details, the paint sculpt. And then sometimes I'll do articulation depending on how intricate the articulation is for the figure. And then I'll just kind of end by giving my overall thoughts and pros and cons of the figure, if I recommend it, if I don't. Most of the time I do, but
yeah.
yeah, it's pretty much the gist of it.
B, can I make a suggestion? What I would advise you to do if you're nervous about it, develop a second channel and call it Retro Randoms. Don't take it personally when one of your friends says it's a weird hookup site for retro gaming enthusiasts.
Noted. Thank you for the suggestion. I like
I just
it.
realized James has that video that I'm looking for. It's called Organizing Your Toy Room. There you go.
Episode 4. There it is. I like
Is it
it.
like a series?
Yeah, so my room was kind of under reconstruction. I was moving shelves around, and I just had so much stuff over the last few months that I had picked up that were just thrown on the
Yeah.
floor because I didn't get around to organizing it. So I
Oh,
was just
yeah.
redoing the shelf, setting
Stuff.
up new displays. But the main video right when you go to my channel is my latest toy room tour. So
Mhm.
that's everything set up. I gotta fix a couple shelves over here because I have some figures that fell over, but that's
Funkos are
the
dangerous,
pros and
man.
cons. Oh, I
But it
have like
looks like you're opening them though. You don't keep them in box?
no.
Real
I don't
toy
think there's
collectors don't keep
anyone.
shit in boxes, man.
No, don't
There
lie.
there are some that I
Yeah.
do keep in packaging. Not necessarily Funkos. I think I opened all of mine, and right now I'm sitting at like
Mhm.
250 Funkos or something like
Oh
that.
my
Look at
goodness.
that. The Disney vault there with the VHS tapes. Nice work.
Oh yeah. I got I don't
Yeah.
know, about 50 VHSs right now, so I collect a little bit of everything.
Yeah.
Oh
I
man,
like
there's
it.
me with my hair.
How's dusting in your place for toys?
Not too bad. This room doesn't pick up a ton of dust, and I
Yeah.
also invested in an air purifier, so that helps. But
Mm,
in a couple weeks, I'm getting new windows installed in the house, and this room
very
is
cool.
probably gonna get covered in dust. So I'm not looking forward to that.
So, how does content on the Funko Pop stuff do for you? Like, do you find there's a huge uptake on that?
As long as you do it, like once the product just recently comes out,
Yeah.
you'll get decent amount of views. I've noticed that I may not get a ton of views right away, but then if I check back on that video in like a week or two, the views kind of just randomly pick up. So it's hit or miss. I have some Funko Pop videos that have like 20,000 views, and I have some that have like 200. So it
Yeah.
really just depends on what people are searching for.
Arcade1up stuff is funny like that too, because you'll do a video on like an Arcade1up cabinet, a review like on a Midway Legacy cabinet, and it'll do
Mhm.
okay. But then all of a sudden, like there'll be some sales on it, and all of a sudden you look back like a year later and you're
Yeah,
like, how does this have like 30,000 views?
yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was following you, James, for a while there. You like it just those videos where you're like you shaved your head and then you grew your hair out, right? Like I
Yep,
think you
yeah.
had it pretty long there just a couple months ago. Is that right?
I had it. I just cut my hair last week, actually, last week Sunday. But I grew it out for a year straight,
Yeah.
just because I got bored and I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna grow my hair out. So I did that, and then I finally just it's summertime here in Florida. It's like 90 degrees, 95 degrees. So I couldn't take it anymore and just cut it all off.
See, I think that would be a cool. It's a cool element as a content creator. Michael B needs to do that. Just grow your beard out. Just let it keep growing.
So I'll tell you a funny story now. I did a video years ago on one of my NES Complete Collection Chronicle videos. I'd never be able to pick it out if I could, but I had like a full bushy beard and I decided to shave it. And what I did was I used to do these videos where like, and I didn't do anything in the videos. I didn't know what I was doing. This was when I was first doing YouTube. So I just show the game that I got. Like I didn't talk about the game, didn't talk about anything. I just go, and I got Mario Bros. And I got this one. And it would all be jump cuts. So what I did was I kept shaving my beard in different ways. Like I did like 10 games that I picked up with a full beard. Then I did 10 games with a Franz Joseph, then 10 games with a handlebar mustache, and then 10 games shaved. And what I did was I changed the jumps to different facial hairs. So like it would be one full beard, next no beard, next handlebar mustache, next Franz Joseph. Like it's a crazy video.
What? And I'm like,
yeah, my facial hair just keeps changing every game that pops up.
that's nuts. Okay, super chat from Console Fanboy says, do you have, it's to James, do you have any Back to the Future Funk Pops? I guess to anyone. The Emmett Brown glow in the dark is $1,100 now. The Marty Plutonium one is worth over $800. I think he's saying this because he owns them and he's trying to brag, but
yeah, give me 1 second.
Oh, he's like, James is like, hold my beer.
He's gonna show off the goodies, the most prized. Oh, and then I want to see what the most expensive thing in your collection is after this.
All right, cool. So as far as the Back to the Future Funko Pops that I have this one. And then I just recently looked up the price for this one, and I had no idea it was going for like $140, and I literally just picked this one up today at a little convention that I went to.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I did see the prices for that Plutonium Marty were insane. Don't know why. I guess just because it's an older one. And then you were asking what's the most expensive thing in my collection. That's tough. It's got to be.
It's almost like my wife asks me this question all the time. Like, if your house was burning down, knock on wood, and you had to grab one thing out of your house, out of your collection, what would be that one thing? Whether it's collectible or if it's worth a lot.
Yeah. The problem is I have so much stuff. It's impossible to just grab
like
one
a bag.
thing.
Be like,
pretty much, yeah. I know like some of the Funko Pops that I have the original Apollo Creed and Clubber Lang from the Rocky series. I know those are going for quite a bit of money. But I don't know what's actually the most expensive thing. I know probably the most expensive thing I bought is the hoverboard from Back to the Future. And I bought that. It was a San Diego Comic-Con exclusive back in like 2012 or 2013, and I might have paid like $400 or $500 for that.
Wow.
That might be the single most expensive item as far as toys that I purchased for sure. Just
That's
looking
cool,
around.
but did you ever make a video like this where you animate yourself falling from the sky and then roller skating across an island with video games around you? What is this video, Mike?
This is Michael B trying to flex his useless, not good editing muscles. Look, you can see my G.I. Joes. These are the ones that are in the garbage bags now.
Oh, geez. When was this?
Actually, I did want to comment on that because you said you had no space for the G.I. Joes. I see a lot of wall space right behind you.
No, this is here. Yeah, this is my new office. My wife did suggest that. I'm trying to figure out what I want to do with it. I might bring G.I. Joes up and put them back on the wall. My Transformers.
That's the thing. So many people for so many years have been telling me like I'm running out of space.
Yeah.
There's always, as long as you have a spot on the wall where you can just mount a shelf, or even like with Hot Wheels, I just like thumbtack them to the wall. As long as you have wall space, you're good to go.
So I'll tell you a funny story now, James. When I first joined the Arcade1up global fan page that apparently you started, Lewis was saying earlier, you and him were like original people for that Facebook page.
I wouldn't say I started it. By no means that I created or anything, but I was there day one. I was actually, I want to say, the first person to make an Arcade1up video, and the reason I made it was because I couldn't find any information out there because nobody made a video before that. So that's how it started. I just was looking for info, couldn't find info, so I made the info myself.
So I put my picture of my 3 arcade cabinets, my Street Fighter, my Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and my Mortal Kombat up there, and I was so
Mhm.
excited. I was building this little arcade space, and the first comment was, "Toys don't belong in an arcade," because I have my toys in the background.
So
That was the
some
very
people
first
just
comment in the non-toxic community.
Did you tell them that the entire video is about toys?
I don't think I responded to them. I just let it go.
I gutted my
Yes.
Turtles cabinet and have my Turtles toys inside of the Turtles cabinet
Nice.
because I didn't have any more space for them. So
Now that's just
Nice.
cool.
yeah, back when
You
modding
have
in,
like little
arcades
shelves in there. Or...
yeah, I gutted the front portion of it because the original kick plate just had the logos of the games, and I
Yeah.
was like, that's empty space. I wonder if I could, and I threw them in there. It forced me to actually open up the packaging for several of them, which was like I was an MOSC collector of some things,
Mhm.
and I was like, oh, it's the original like remake versions of them, but they're not as worth as much. So I opened them up. Then my kids play with it.
Yeah.
Now it's a mess. But
It's
arcades and toys,
the
good mix.
it's the Playmates Turtles.
Yeah, I've liked
Okay.
all the
Yeah.
remix. There's so much
Yeah.
turtle stuff, like, and especially when you get into lines and things. There's so much things you could talk about in toy collecting world. There's a lot of things, whether it's lines, whether it's a certain brand that you're loyal to. There's so many
Yeah.
fun things to go in that space.
So you guys are both toy collectors. This is something that was brought to my attention recently. I didn't really realize that a lot of the classic toy collectors actually hate the fact that they're doing the re-releases right now because it
Devalues.
gets it devalues the
Mm.
original toys, and it also makes it hard. Like one of the things that I really got fed up with in the classic console collecting world is I was at a point where I was spending so much to get stuff I needed from my collection that I had to like learn the ins and the outs of like what every board looked like because there were so many counterfeits, repros, and fakes.
Oh
Do
yeah,
you guys run across that? Like if you're going to buy a retro toy, like you have to make sure it is in fact the retro toy and it's not one of these re-releases. That's kind of the impression I got they were upset about.
It depends. I mean, most collectors will be able to differentiate them, especially if you have it in hand. If you're just physically there, all you have to do is check the date on the bottom of the toy, anyways. And in some cases, it does devalue the original toys, but in other cases, it will actually increase the value of the original toys because now that they're re-releasing newer versions, people want the originals, and they'll pay whatever they have to pay to go back and get those.
yeah. It really depends, and to your point, there's some knockoffs or the third party toys that if it's made in China, unfortunately sometimes they can get ripped and they just scratch off the logos and they're remade. Some of them are really good. I will have to admit that I've gone to AliExpress and have gotten a non-real Hasbro Takara masterpiece toy, and it's very similar, but the problem a lot of times with those are the joints. Like toys that have joints that are intricate probably would be like the looser plastic is probably the only thing. But from a look standpoint, if you like to just like transform and display, like some of those are actually pretty decent. And I bought my fair share of Lepin Legos before, so there is an aftermarket for some of those things. And I now have started to appreciate supporting kind of like the real ones if I can get them. I think that's part of it too, is if you get them, you might have to go through these other nefarious means of getting similar products.
Yeah, my Newfoundland accent and Mario Bros. It's honestly, it's how everybody says it. I know it's Mario Bros. I know it, but it's how we say it here. It's my accent. I do got to tell you guys a horrific toy collecting story that happened to me once. So I do collect Transformers toys, and there's ones I'm very interested in. So I got a inside scoop that this guy had these Transformer toys he wanted to sell me. So I met him on Craigslist. He wanted to meet me in a deserted alley out by the train station. So I went out there, and my wife was really scared. She said, "Make sure you're okay." I was a little trepidatious, but I went and met him anyways. He handed me a bag of toys, and I gave him the money. When I got home, go bots.
You didn't look at them while you were there? You just
It was a dark alley.
check out these
That's funny.
Transformers. Just make sure you don't transform them into their alt modes. They were all
None of-
cars.
None of that happened. None of that happened.
But there's
That's too funny.
Arcade1up, there's clone or scams out there. Don't forget about the newest one. I think is arcade1up.click.com, and you can pick up these cabinets, for only $97, $93.
What
You
I
can-
want to know is, has anyone actually purchased from these websites, and what have they actually gotten?
Yes,
Unfortunately,
they
we've
have.
seen the scammers.
Yeah.
And is it just nothing shows up and they get their money taken, or?
My
Credit
understanding
card
is that
scams.
just their money gets taken. That's it.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then the
Just
shop goes down like a couple of days later.
James like,
so.
but are you sure?
No, I was just curious what actually, like, if anything shows up, what actually does end up showing up?
It's
I
just a
don't think
note that
anything
there's
shows up.
got ya, sucker.
Look at this. They even got the YouTube videos in line there.
It's a
Yeah,
picture of it. They put it in a postcard.
I used this in my video earlier because the Arcade1up official website doesn't have the Atari Pong Jr. by Unis up on their website anymore, and I needed an image of it. The only one I could find was arcade1up.click.
Nice.
So they still have the Pong Jr. on there.
See, I'm always afraid because I built the Home Arcade Deals website, and it does have these low prices because I sort it by the lowest price, and I'm afraid people come in here and be like, I think this is a scam. But no, this website won't ever ask for your credit card number. You click on it, it'll take you to the website.
Yeah, I remember when you first created that website a few years back.
Yeah.
It's gold.
Yeah.
That was good stuff.
Yeah. Unfortunately, we can't get the local store prices anymore, but we can still track online deals.
Yeah.
A while back, I don't know if you saw, Console Fanboy did have a super chat that was asking about selling. What do you feel about selling as part of a collector? At what point, and Michael B, I mean, you can talk about this because you let go a ton of your collection, and how did that feel, letting go of the majority of your cartridge collection?
Yeah, so my cartridge collection, letting all that go, as much as it sucked, I mean, it was all a product at the time. I had just had my daughter, so there was some space consideration that went into it. There was also some security consideration going into it too, because none of that retro console stuff was insurable. I had to get a special rider from Lloyd's of London. So there was that. And then there was just constantly the fear that something would happen, like you'd leave the house and it gets stolen. So as much as I loved having it, it was also kind of a relief when I sold some of it, because I didn't have to worry about anything happening and just losing that investment. Like, it was ridiculous because I had I think close to $60,000 worth of video games just in my house. And like, if anything happened,
one
it was
lump
just
sum?
gone.
Did you sell it
Pardon?
in one go? Did you sell it in one go, or does it
I got-
multiple?
I got really lucky. I sold a lot of stuff to another collector, and he bought everything in lump sum. Like, we're talking I would get e-transfers of like $10,000.
Dang.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I did for me, the very first thing related to Arcade1up that I sold. I mean, I've struggled for the last 5 years or so what this hobby is for me. I mean, it started out with, I was modding Nintendo consoles, and I did one for myself, but I bought two because it was kind of like buying hot dogs and buns. It was a scenario where, with shipping or whatever, if I bought two, it would be cheaper, and then maybe I could do mod on two consoles, and then I would sell the second one. And then I did two mods, but I ended up putting it on eBay at like my cost, but the bid went high enough where it's like I got the mod for free. It's like I got the entire thing for free. So then I was like, well, let me buy 10 more, right? And maybe I'll be a modder. And then I went 50. I ended up investing and buying 50 high def they're called, what are they called? High def NES. And it allows you to get HDMI lag free from your original NES cartridge.
That just fueled the rest of your collection, because now you found the big, what is that called? Like the price difference or the gap when you buy something and like the profit margin. What, I don't know. There's like a term for it, like, right? Equity, something to that effect. But yeah, you found a way to fund your hobby.
That's right. I kept on reinvesting, and then it's weird because even YouTube, not obviously, like, if I was smart, I wouldn't make YouTube content because the ad revenue, I mean, it's something, it definitely like covers costs of certain things, but being like an e-shop where you're like, I mean, Kong, you've done pretty well with your modding on the side, right? Like,
thank you, Vessel. The margins, yes, the margins on that were good. James, how about you? Have you sold any of your collection, or are you just continually adding into your massive display?
So when I first started setting up this iteration of my man cave, I think it was a year ago, I had so much stuff that I just had, and I was setting shelves up, and then it got to the point where when I first started collecting about 10 years ago, I had bought a bunch of Predator action figures from NECA. And at the time, I was really into them, and they were still sealed and everything. But more now, I'm not really into them as much. And them being sealed, I didn't really have a good spot to display them or do anything with them. So I just took all of them and sold them and made like $600 on them. So there is stuff that I bought, let's say 5-10 years ago, that at the time I was really into it. But if I'm not really as into it now, then just let it go. If I don't need it, if it's not being put on display and just taking up space in the garage, I don't really have a use for it. And yeah, I can get money out of it. So why not?
James, this is just like what is it, Marie Kondo or whatever her name is? Like,
Yes.
you pick something up. If it brings you joy, keep it. If it doesn't bring you joy, sell it.
Exactly.
Sparks joy. That's a good one. I
Sparks
need a Marie
joy,
Kondo. A lot of things in my house, honestly, but yeah, it's good.
I actually have that as a question that I had planned for the show. What items that you have purchased that spark joy for you right now?
Are we talking
I'll start
arcades or just anything?
Yeah, think about it for a second. I'll be right back with mine. Talk amongst yourself.
Oh, he's gonna bring it. Oh, see, this is what YouTube is. YouTube is literally just adult show and tell. It's one of the favorite reasons
pretty
why
much.
we do content, is because we want to talk about the shiny new thing and share it with the world at some level. So I really appreciate just having the avenue.
Did either of you guys, like when you started YouTube a little later than I did, but like, do you remember when pickup videos was a big thing? There was a whole community of people that would do pickup videos. You'd do toy.
I still do them.
videos.
Yeah, I do haul videos all the time. I actually have a giant pile
yeah.
next to me that I'm probably going to be doing a haul video.
I used to go to Comic-Con every year, and I would take not a video, but before I got into YouTube, every year I had to take my haul picture, and I have every year just the pics of what I got from Comic-Con, doubles of everything, so I could resell them to make back some of my time waiting in lines and lines and lines. But yeah, the haul pics and haul videos, those are fun.
Yeah, I do a ton of those.
I was going to go back to James. Like, that's the funny thing, and I bet when you do your haul videos, your pickup videos, you get the same people that watch every time, and they're collectors too that do similar type videos, and it's almost like you share a community based on just that.
Yeah, people just love to see what other people are picking up, and if people are picking up the same thing they're picking up, or just not even necessarily the same thing, but like, because I pick up a lot of new things, but I also pick up random old things as well. Let me just grab this over here. So like, I'm a big theme park fan. I go to all the theme parks here in Florida, so I actually picked up this comic book here that was exclusive to Islands of Adventure when they first opened back in 1999. So I like picking up weird things like this, and I like showing it off as well. So, and other people just like seeing what other people are into.
I am so mad. On my honeymoon, I went to Disney World, and we also did the 1-day trip out to Universal Studios, and we did the Marvel side because it was just when Harry Potter opened up, right? So it was the very first year that Harry Potter, and my wife's a huge fan. I had thought at the time that the Back to the Future ride was closed, so I didn't kick up a stink to go at all. But what I found out afterwards, the Back to the Future ride had closed in California. It was still open in Florida at the time.
Correct.
So I completely blew my shot at going to the Back to the Future ride when I was there. I was so mad.
Oh man, I just saw somebody asked where in Florida. You're in Daytona Beach, so I'm in Plantation, Florida, which is basically the Fort Lauderdale area. That's the easiest way I can describe it. So I'm a little bit south of you, but I'm always in Orlando at the theme parks at Disney and Universal.
That's very cool, man. So this is the thing that sparks joy for me right now. Okay, you ready for it? I'm going to show it from the back. This is a 3D print. Let's see if I can get it to focus on it.
There you go.
So 3D printed CRT.
Ooh.
Okay, so
Nice.
how this works is this is an iPad screen. So they take like an iPad 3. You can go take an iPad 3 that you have and then buy the kit for this mod and build yourself a tiny little CRT, has HDMI in, and you can play like, I don't know, whatever retro games that you want on it.
That's perfect to pair with like the mini Super Nintendo or the mini NES. Yeah.
Little classics you can, and it's really cool. And I did set this next to like a little NES classic,
Nice.
so it kind of looks like to scale. But the idea behind it is, this is by Laser Bear. If anyone wanted to check it out, laserbear.net. He sells these kits ready to go. with the iPad screen in it. The iPad screen is actually a pretty high resolution. I think it's about 1500p or somewhere around there. So it's not just like a 480 or something. It's a pretty high end quality. And there's some videos on it from RetroRGB Bob where he's showing hooking up Mister to it or hooking up RetroTink 5X. So you can get like high quality scan lines on it, but it's like this like really high end LCD. I don't know. Just having it, and I've hooked it up. It looks great. Whatever I plug into it looks awesome. But just having it is actually really.
It's a weird size
sparks
though.
joy.
Is that in your desk permanently? Like, do you just take it wherever? Like, where do you put something that size?
I'm actually using it like functionally. So like the video that I did today or that was released today was on the Dreamcast. So whenever I shoot video that's over top, I use what's called an ATEM Mini. I have two of them. I have the ATEM Mini ISO and the ATEM Mini Extreme ISO. So right now we're watching on the ATEM Extreme. So it's a video switcher, and then I have multiple inputs and stuff like that. So I use that, but on the overhead, I have multiple cameras, right? And that's plugged into an ATEM Mini. And then this is my monitor. Like this is
cool.
literally, I can see a grid of all the cameras. So when I'm recording, I don't know if you've noticed it on the recent videos, you'll see a transition from multiple cameras because I only shoot it once is the idea. So like I'm showing the Dreamcast controller, Dreamcast or whatever, and I'm shooting multiple angles at the same time. And then this is kind of like a small little monitor that I use to make sure that,
Nice.
That's what I've been using it mostly for because it sits right on the desk. It's convenient.
Functional toys are cool for sure.
Justin, do they sell those with TN monitors?
Yeah. So they do have an Arcade1up version. That is true.
Perfect.
Perfect aspect ratios. We haven't talked about that at all, Justin.
I know. I ran out of alcohol, so we can't talk about it anymore.
Darn it. Yes.
All right. So I don't know. So B, you got to tell you. I'm gonna push you hard because let's spin the topic a little bit. We have been talking a little bit about just being content creators, and I want to talk a little bit about that. James and I had a little conversation about it because when James has been doing YouTube a lot longer than me. 2015, he's very good at it. In 2018, he started covering Arcade1up, and it seemed like there was a lot of competition in that space. I felt it as well. And you had mentioned that it actually was discouraging to you. And I feel it too. I think we all have it at times, but maybe we could talk a little bit about that just for a second. It's a little meta content. I don't usually do meta content, like content about content, but I really, this is definitely the group that I would like to have that conversation with. I don't know, James, what's your thoughts? Like, is there any content that you don't make because you were discouraged by other creators?
Yeah, I wouldn't necessarily, I don't know if discourage is the right word, but it was just when Arcade1up first kicked off, well, maybe like a few months after that, once everyone finally started to make Arcade1up videos as well, everything just kind of got really repetitive. So anytime a leak would come out, every single person would rush to go make the video about what the leak was to be, I guess, the first people with the content out or whatever the case may be. And it just felt like you always had to be that first person because there was 100 people coming with the video, posting in the group about it. And it just got to the point where I didn't really feel like making the Arcade1up videos anymore. Or not necessarily not anymore, just certain videos I wouldn't want to make. I would still cover like certain aspects of it, but just to try and be the first person breaking the news, I felt like everybody was trying to do that. And it just got to the point for me personally, it just wasn't fun making Arcade1up videos anymore. But now I'm starting to try and get back into it, making different things like the tier list that I made earlier, counting down all the Arcade1up cabinets. So I want to do different content from what everyone else is doing because I felt like so many people are just doing the same thing.
Yeah. Any thoughts, Michael B?
I'm not the best one to ask this. Why don't you ask B? Keep going.
wait. No. Michael B, what are you talking about? What do you mean you're not the right person? I'm going full screen on you now.
Confessions
Man, I hate when
of
people
the
say
Genie.
stuff like that. There's so much room for everybody, and YouTube doesn't work that way. I'm going to tell you guys, like, there's a million people doing a million different things, and no matter how creative you are, how unique you are, there's probably already somebody out there doing the exact same thing. Cover what you want to cover, talk about what you want to talk about. Don't worry about how many people are doing it, how many people are out there. People don't tune in for just the information. They tune in for you as the content creator. Have some confidence in yourself, pride in yourself. Just make whatever you want to make. Screw everybody else. Have fun. Live long. Drink Pepsi. I'm out.
All right, Mike.
I agree with everything except Pepsi. So, I mean,
Yeah.
Coke is obviously the right answer. But
It's just I know this goes along a lot, and it like some people are like just genuine about it. Other people, they will use it as an excuse for their shortcomings. They probably aren't reaching their goals on YouTube. And instead of looking inside to say, maybe I could do something better, or maybe I need to be more unique, or maybe I need to focus on something, they'll say, you know what the problem is? YouTube. It's the algorithms keeping me down, or other content creators, or the space is too crowded. And I just hate that, man. Like, all those things could potentially be right, but you have no control of that stuff. The only thing that you have control of is you. So do what makes you happy. Do what makes you passionate. And the channels that are successful, either there is a strategy to it. And I don't like talking about this YouTube strategy stuff because I just want to do what I want to do. And I don't care about some kind of hook or nostalgia trick to try to get myself ahead.
Nostalgia trick.
You know where I'm
knows all the
going with
tricks.
that. But
I know what you mean. Many people probably don't know what you mean, but I know what you mean.
Like I don't care about it. I just want to be myself. And the channels that aren't trying to angle themselves into some positions that are successful are just the people where they can actually look at the person and be like, wow, that person really loves what he's doing. And I want to experience this with him because obviously he enjoys what he's doing. And I always try to emulate that. It might not come across that way to everybody. And I'm sorry if people don't see me that way. But I think that's the key. If you feel that your content's or you don't want to cover it because you want to be unique, and that's cool. And there's a lot of people that feel that way. Like, that's an artist thing. I don't want to do the same music as somebody else. I want to follow my own path. I get that. But for the people that are like really angry and mad that other people are in the space saying, oh, this guy's got to be first, or this guy's got to cover everything. Those are the people that really need to take a minute, step back and say, is it really the other people that are keeping me down, or am I keeping me down? That's all I'll say.
Dang, Mike. Okay, let me try to take a breath here. We're all friends, okay? One thing, state of positivity through this, and I think what you said was very positive, actually, Mike. I think one of the things that is difficult making a content is that competition. When you have a competition, or your mind thinks it's a competition, that means you're at odds with these other people's in the space, and that might be counterproductive, because what I found that's really beneficial is when those other people have your back. Like Mike, like B, and we have each other's back, or anyone in the home arcade content space knows they can always reach out to me. If you are ever stuck on any content, most of us will do whatever they can to help you. You know what I mean? Like thumbnail ideas, better title ideas, whatever, coverage of whatever. Because some of that is like they make the content whatever they want, but they still are like, it's like writer's block, right? Like even if you're writing a book or a chapter, you might get stuck, right? And you kind of want to have people in the space that support you. Do you know what I mean? Like think about it. It is like music. Like I know growing up, like my brother, he's a producer, writes music. He has a very supportive wife. His wife is extremely supportive with the music that he does, the time investment, the feedback, and that really makes a difference. And in general, the entire family gives him that support. But when it comes to YouTube, like your spouse, my wife gives me support, but not in the same way when it comes to content. You know what I mean? It's like the YouTube is just this hobby that you do. And so we find support in other people. And I think, well, I wanted to show that support to James. Is definitely why I wanted to bring him on, shower some love his way to let him know that.
Yeah,
especially when
James is
he
awesome.
mentioned, I know that when you were making the content early on, it was struggle, because I would literally see you or Cool Toy or Retro Ralph make an E3 video, and I would feel like I don't deserve to be able to compete with you guys. So I would wait 2 weeks before I would release content, be like essentially let you guys have the light, and then it would come over. And I found that to be, it would work for me, because there would kind of be the second wave of people are interested, and then kind of You know the whole thing. Have you ever heard the phrase of if there's a we've talked about this, Mike. When there's someone in the community, there's drama in the community, just wait 2 weeks, everyone will forget about it. And that's true. It's also like that with content. If someone like comes up with a new topic in the space, there's like this kind of like you could make a video on that topic 2 weeks later and people are interested again. You know, it's because people are
Are you
like,
saying it's the perfect time to talk about TN monitors again?
we're back on TN monitors. Do you know the monitor gate? We have solutions for you. Can you believe it? You're putting a 10-year-old Dell monitor in your Arcade1up.
You're
light
absolutely
years
right.
better.
You're absolutely right. Yeah.
Anyway, what do you think, B? We got to hear B.
It's okay. Well, Michael B has an interesting take, and it's one of the reasons why Michael B is one of the most liked guys in the community. I feel that it's the, do what makes you happy type of attitude that I really do like about Michael B's content. And you can tell in your content that you are passionate about what you talk about, whether it's news, whether it's a review, whether it's making a dressercade and trying and attempting it. Like there's a lot of things
so
you try, but you had fun. And
no,
we
I
were there for
didn't. I only did it as a personal favorite of nostalgia, and then you watched him make fun of me the whole time. You made me hate him during that process.
Canada. That was really, really fun. For folks that don't know, Michael B competed in a USA versus Canada Build Your Own Legends contest. It was great. From a content perspective, I did feel a little bit what you were saying, Console Kits, earlier about being an early content creator and seeing a lot of folks in the space. It was nerve-wracking trying to make content for the very first time. And I was doing a lot of produced videos at first. For my first 8 months, it was like one video every other month because producing and editing, I had the vision of what I wanted to do. My first video took off. It was a Star Wars mod. And then from there, like I finally had to learn how to be in front of a camera, work a live stream. I figured out I was decent at interviewing and talking to modders and giving a voice to that community. Because modding Arcade1ups was a whole different scene than the folks that were just collecting it. And there was I felt like a huge missing voice for that particular community. I know Ralph was doing a lot of modding with the different types of original hardware into their things, but doing full on other things. That's where I felt like, all right, I did find a voice. And I think that's probably hard. Like, I think that's in maybe James and to your point early on, like where is your voice in this community that brings value? Because you also want to be able to feel like you bring value to the overall community. There's a lot of people that are making reviews and content that, may be discouraged and they still like doing it. But if it does take off, I think all of us here feel like YouTube is also in itself another hobby. It's these videos that we do, it's like collecting the next big thing. It's like, hey, these are my things that I put hours of time into that we love enjoying and collecting and doing that thing too. So finding other content creators that share that same passion is why some of us really get along that well, because now we can share that passion of doing content as another layer of collecting.
Yeah, 100%. Like, look at this.
So-
like, Michael B, I'm so jealous. Look at his collection of videos. He's got a lot more videos that I have, Anyway.
And a
that's his
terrible top 10
collection.
SNES list. Terrible.
Because it doesn't have Chrono Trigger number one. Only Chrono Trigger counts.
It's not even in your top 10. If it's not, I don't know how.
I didn't say they were the best 10 games. I said they're my top 10 that I enjoy playing.
I want to see more really, really bad NES games from Michael B, but it needs to be really, really bad. Hold on, let me fix it real quick. We'll go into this inspector here. Really, really bad arcade game.
There are some of those.
There we
What is
go.
it? That Casino
This
Golf,
video right
number
here.
one.
That's funny.
So, Justin, I did just want to say real quick, you touched on earlier that you felt like you didn't you didn't have the right, I guess, to make Arcade1up videos when the news first dropped. I hope you still don't feel like that, because you're also an OG from the community, and everything you've done for the community, being here from day one, making your videos, these weekly streams that you do, and even the website that you made. You definitely have done a lot for the community, and I don't know if people tell you it, but we appreciate it.
Yeah, I appreciate that. The discouraging thing that I get from other people is this is a struggle for me, because I could cover other content, sure. But when people are like, you need to, you have to, and I'm like, I chose to be in this community. I chose to try to bring as much light to the community to support others, and now you want me to leave? Like, isn't it
Mm-hmm.
my choice and to cover the content that I want to cover? And so there's this feeling, I think, that some people assume that I'm unhappy with the content that I'm making, or that Arcade1up is a embarrassing topic to cover, and that you should cover maybe full-size arcades because it's less embarrassing. But okay, Mike, all
Don't
right.
explode. I'm gonna
Right.
explode here. So first off, James, I do want to apologize. I'm not. I wasn't trying to call you out in any capacity or anything like
Oh
that.
no,
I
not
hope it
at all.
didn't come across that way. It's just when Justin first told me that you were one of the original OG Arcade1uppers, and you decided to stop making content on it for that reason. It just made me really sad, man. Because if this is something you're like and something you're interested in, I hate that you felt that way, that you had to leave. Like, that sucks. So, I guess
Yeah,
I'm trying to
I
do a
wouldn't
rallying
say
cry.
I didn't take it in any way, so no hard feelings there. But I never like fully left. I just didn't make videos as often. I would cover the big topics at
Yeah.
E3, CES, but I wouldn't do like the weekly videos or the speculations and stuff like I used to do. Yeah, and that had played a part of it, but it was also time constraints as well. A lot of my videos have slowed down just in general, so I had to pick and choose, what videos I did want to make. But definitely it played a little bit of a part of it. But I didn't take anything you said the wrong way or anything like that.
No, and no worries on that. I still treat YouTube very stupidly, probably much like I did when I first came in. That I talk about this stuff because I want to be part of the conversation. I want to be friends with people, and I want to join the community. So that's my idea. And when Justin said that, it made me sad to make me think that you felt like you couldn't be part of the community. But I want to tell you, I don't know you that well, but I
Mhm.
mean, if you're a fan of Arcade1ups, make videos about it. Come join us. Jump on our streams. Like, that's what we do here, and I'd like to
Yeah.
talk to you more.
Yeah,
Anyways, to
appreciate it.
Justin's point, I understand where Justin's coming from. Justin has one of those weird YouTube relationships where he was part of a dynamic duo, like Batman and Robin. It was Justin and Ralph. And like, I had a conversation with UAG a little while ago, and we talked about like the pillars of this community. And like, he talked about, P-Dubs is a pillar, Retro Ralph's a pillar, even though Retro Ralph doesn't make content anymore. Cool Toy's a pillar. And then, we talked about Justin, and he said, Justin's a pillar. And I said, and Justin, don't take any offense to this. And I said, not at first. Even though you were one of the original content creators, you were so close to Ralph that it took a while of you not making content and then coming back and bringing your own place to the table, that you got away from being part of that dynamic duo and really stood out on your own. And you really did cement yourself as one of the most important people. And now you don't have that stigmatism of, well, it's console kits. Well, Retro Ralph and console kits. It's just console kits now. And, you have that pillar all by yourself. So,
Guys, I'm right here. Come on.
and I wanted to say that. But the other thing too is, I guess there's also, it's hard when you do have friends on YouTube, especially people you're close with, and you're running circles and communities. Like, there's a hive mindset that people get into if they change their views or something like that. I remember being on YouTube, and like, when Patreon first came out, like, everybody was like, if you put Patreon on your channel, you're a piece of shit. Like, only pieces of shit have Patreons, and it's stuff like that. Like, don't put ads on your videos. And there's this mindset that it completely affects your credibility if you don't do everything else that your group does. And I've always just said, well, I'll just find new people to talk to, and just did whatever I wanted to do. I understand that not everybody's going to do that, but Justin, I get where you're coming from. You hang out with a group of people that have very strong opinions on where they are now, and they think you should have the same opinion, basically.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like anyone can be persuaded, but I do hope to always mix in other variety of content, and I'll probably do that more over time. But I mean, it's natural for me to, whenever there's news leaks or someone messages me, I mean, I make videos that I feel an urgency to make. That's what I do. Like, it's one of those things. I think there's a philosophy behind it. I haven't tracked it down, but it's this idea: you are excited about what you're excited about, right? Like, so whatever you find yourself like being pulled to, whatever just breaks your distraction and the squirrel that you're looking at, that's the thing that you're interested in. And so, yeah, CastleMania Games. I'm also interested in writing code for CastleMania Games. He's came live right now to be like, get back to work right now. No, I'm kidding. I did want to mention that somewhere through the show. There is a weird software development addiction as well. Like if you write code, I think there's some in the chat that do. There's definitely an addiction there as well. It's like you'll take 2 weeks. I don't know. Maybe you guys are like this about your job, but like I'll take 2 weeks off and do nothing, and I'll write code in my time off. It's like it's this weird thing where you've been doing it for so long, you don't know how to function without continuously doing it. I don't know. It's like puzzles or something like that. So
CastleMania Games is here to help you remind people to subscribe, because once you get to 10,000 subscribers,
That's
I heard
right.
you were doing something fun, weren't you?
That's right. CastleMania said he's going to give away an OLED Switch when I hit 10,000. All you got to do, and he's going to work out a deal. But what I've been saying, any commenters on these weekly podcasts are automatically entered once I hit 10K. Again, normally something I wouldn't do for a giveaway, but he offered it, and so there we
Awesome.
are.
I agree with Michael B, by the way, about just you cementing yourself, Justin, especially those early morning streams. As a person that's on the West Coast, I often wake up late to news, and I'll just be like rolling out of bed. I'm like, holy shit, Console Kit is live. I'm like sitting in bed, like the news just came out, and it's like 7 a.m. my time. And so there's just an excitement about, seeing other people's passion about whatever it is, and I think that's the greatest part, and you can really truly sense that. And it's, I think, why some people like watching my content, which is sometimes when I bring in my family, that's very surprising, the things my wife will say on stream, as Justin witnessed last week about joining content
right.
and things. And when you bring the fun into it, I think we can see that, and I've seen that in a lot of your content recently too. So you bring some value there. I have enjoyed being a part of the community, having a small voice and a niche to bring some things to light. I feel like my content is very topic heavy focused. So as a content creator, it's also one of the things I struggle with. I have a weekly show, but every show topic is very different in terms of who's watching it. I think Michael B and Console Kits, you guys are very much, no matter the topic, you're bringing in like a same group of people to talk to you. I don't think I found that sweet spot yet of like really gathering the same audience every time. I have my hardcore folks that love it, but I don't, and I think I'm okay with that. I think I'm okay with like just really focusing on things I really want to talk about, instead of having to bring in and feel like there's a crowd. There's a different element to it, but
Yeah.
that's just kind of my content and how I've approached my channel.
It's cool.
Yeah.
Well, let's do the final rounds. Everyone talk about where can you be found on social media? Michael B, you can go first.
So I am on
OnlyFans.
OnlyFans. You can find me Steven Nostalgia on OnlyFans. You can also find me on Instagram, michaelb.1980. I'm on Twitter at Michael B Game Genie or Mike B Game Genie. I'm on Facebook as Michael Burry. Don't bother my personal family. So come find me on my fan pages or whatever you want to do. And of course, YouTube, Michael B the Game Genie, where you'll find me making a variety of videos of whatever I'm interested in that day. However, you won't find me making a video on PlayStation Now and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild 2 because it only got 397 views.
Don't let the views control your content. All right, James.
All right. So on YouTube, the Toy Room obviously looks like the Toy Story logo, and my Instagram, the Toy Room JP. Pretty much it. Michael, you said something, but you're muted.
No. I was making the joke again about your logo. You said it's from Toy Story, and I was like, oh, that's where it's from.
Yeah, that's where it's from. That's pretty much it. I don't really use Twitter or Facebook that much, other than for like personal reasons. So yeah, YouTube and Instagram.
Do you have a big blue, James? Do you play Street Fighter enough to play online with the?
I don't have the big blue. Don't know if I'm gonna get one, since I have the original one behind me. If I did, I would get rid of this one to replace it with the big blue. But at the moment, I don't have any plans for it.
There's the Capcom Legacy leak that came out this week. It's from the FCC, which means it's going to have Wi-Fi, which means it's going to have online.
It's a good replacement if you're going to replace them.
Yeah. So I would hold out on that one because 2 reasons. Hold out on buying Big Blue right now. Hold on before we finish this up. Just as a reminder.
Do you guys have Street Fighter on your Nintendo Switch? Do you guys own the Switch? You do? Okay. We'll talk.
There we go. On the deals website that I have, I'm tracking this, but everyone should keep an eye on it, because once that Capcom, I'm really curious. Where's it at? So the big blue.
I saw it up. Go up. I think you skipped it.
Saw it. Big blue. So the big blue right now, it's $5.99 pretty much everywhere. Maybe always check out HSN QVC, because sometimes they have like, additional discounts. But I think once that Capcom Legacy new version comes in, they may be liquidating this. I don't know. We'll see.
Hopefully.
So you can kind of, even Walmart carries it. So Walmart is typically one of the first ones to, when they buy the next generation, they'll start dropping that price. So
Michael B has a great video on his channel says when to sell Arcade1up cabinets and when to buy. So check it out. one of the better ones in your collection.
Right. Well, everyone did their rounds, but Psych, I want to continue the show. I don't know if you guys, we have 15 more minutes until 19K Fox Represent is
Let's
going
just go
live
on his show.
let's just hop over to 19K Fox show. If you guys are just joining, so the next show in the pipeline, 19K Fox, his topics is mod versus repairs, Capcom Legacy leak, the iArcade Gold update, and as always, bourbon. Now, there's something that I want to talk about real quick. 19K Fox, have you guys seen his video that he did? He did this Intech Gaming Genesis mod, which I think is pretty fantastic, right? So it's he took a, was this his Rampage? No, I think it was a different one, but it's a Gen 1.
It's a Street Fighter cabinet.
It's a Street Fighter? Okay, so it's a Gen 1 cabinet, and he got the artwork on the side, and then he used the Intech Gaming control panel, and then he did the special mod down below is where he's keeping his cartridges. I don't know, so what do you guys think about this idea of playing console games on your Arcade1up? This is something that I've kind of struggled with the idea. Like, no one wants Arcade1up to come out with an arcade with games in them, yet people are buying up the Intech Gaming control panel that basically lets you plug in cartridges. I'm curious why anyone would think that, we say no, but then we say yes. Is it different demographics? I like the idea personally. I don't know. What did you guys think?
I don't know if I would do it. I do have a bunch of square QBs with my consoles, and I think this concept helps breathe some new life into them. If now you're spending more time in your arcade and you want to have that combination of console arcade, I don't like the idea of playing those original games on a joystick button combination. I think that would be hard for me to play Sonic on that type of configuration. So that would be like my biggest kind of like hard kind of negative about doing something like that. Is like I'm a fan of original controls for whatever set console, so it's one of the reasons why I haven't done any of the Intech mods.
Yeah, I remember watching a Let's Play my friend did of playing the original Mega Man on NES using the NES Advantage, and I was like, "Are you nuts? Like Mega Man 1 is hard enough, man. Like why would you make it more complicated?" So that's what I think of with that. There definitely seems to be a very interested market in doing like Arcade1up mods into consoles. Like when I first one I ever saw was Retro Ralph's Genesis cabinet. And then of course I saw this one, a horrible job on the marquee 19K Fox. I mean, just awful marquee. But other than that, there seems to be a big interest in people doing these. And Justin says, "Oh, I don't think I'd like to get a cabinet from Arcade1up with console games on it." Arcade1up, Play Choice 10. Justin would be, whoa!
Yeah. It's weird, though, because it's like people would, maybe I would justify publicly to not be shamed that the Play Choice 10 is canon arcade games, but we all know it's NES ROMs that have been slightly tweaked, like Mario Brothers, just barely tweaked, but they're pretty much the NES games.
Yeah, so like you get the versus games, that's a little bit different. Then you could justify it, yeah.
But it's the same architecture, though. It's like, there are ports out there where you can play some of the Play Choice 10s, on an original NES. I don't think they're widely available because the hardware is not exact, but there's tweaks out there, mods out there to get it done. And then I'm thinking I have an extra Play Choice 10 where I just got the basically an empty cabinet. I'm thinking about putting a Nintendo cartridge, a Nintendo console in there because I have plenty of them. They're valued at only about $50, where the Play Choice hardware is hundreds of
Yeah.
dollars just for that PCB.
That's the only one that kind of makes sense though, because they did like arcade versions of some of those, arcade whatever it is. But like, so you can play some of those games in an arcade setting, and it feels natural. Like a Genesis cab, I don't think has ever been done at like formally. So yeah, I think that's just
Yeah. There was a Mega Drive cab. Like I actually had to
What's it
look into
called?
this. I can't remember now, but there's a Streets of Rage arcade game, and it's
really
the console version of Streets of Rage 2 that was on an arcade Genesis arcade cabinet.
just to play it.
Yeah.
Interesting.
And then the Neo Geo technically, right? There was the AES, which was a console.
Yeah.
And the only difference between the games was basically, are you putting a coin in or do you have continues, right?
Yeah.
I
But
see.
and I bet I haven't done an analysis, but I bet the ROMs are nearly the same,
Pretty similar.
Yeah, guys. So the big question, where are we going to land on this? I want to wrap this comment up, but, the collector in you. I think James is a collector, but I think I've been sold on that, but is it really an addiction? That's one thing that we haven't addressed yet, and I want to, before we end the show, kind of talk a little bit about that addiction part. Now, to start off this quick conversation, I'm gonna go with Michael B, actually, because
I've talked too much.
well, Michael B, when it comes to cartridges, it sounds like you've bought thousands of them, maybe
Yeah.
individually sought out a game. This is a gaming channel, right? So, and then you've purchased it, and then you sold them all, and now you've bought a ton of Arcade1ups, and then sold some of them and bought more. And this idea that Arcade1up is coming out with new cabinets that may be $1,000, is it possible that the addiction is, let's call it an addiction for a second, is so strong that even if the price goes up, you still need your fix? And again, I'm not trying to offend anyone using the drug reference, but it is simple language to describe the analogy. So
No,
what do you
I
think,
mean,
Mike?
if you do the psychology in it, anytime you collect or you're passionate about something and something comes out, that process of buying something releases some kind of endorphins or drugs. Like you get a rush from, buying something that you collect. So I get that to some capacity, but there's reality things when you're a collector where you only have so much space, you only have so much money, you only have so much room. And when it gets difficult to collect, your interest wanes a little bit. And I think a lot of people in the Arcade1up space, unless you're like, CT Jason with the world's biggest basement, you only have so much room. So like I've talked about it a lot this past year. I'm at a point where I really like what I have. I really like the games that I have in my basement. There's not a lot that I could see myself parting with. And, I just had another kid. I've got a 1-month-old baby. I'm a 42-year-old man. So, that eats up a lot of money and a lot of time. So for me, they come out with pro cabs, all this other stuff. I think I'm good. I'm at the point in my collecting where the addiction part is over, where the endorphins are kind of gone. And now it's more about really securing stuff I'm really super interested in. That's where I'm to.
But it sounds like it might be the same that you said before, where you're buying all of these cartridges, but then your interest switched to getting like these more complete in box. Is there any similarity to that, where you're like your complete in box is kind of like the Arcade1up that you really desire, or is it not that?
Well, no. Like when I was doing that, the TurboGrafx 16 collection, that was happening at the same time as the Nintendo games. I was just buying everything, man. Like it's so much money. So yeah. So no, it's not really like that. But I will say, Justin, we talked about this before. I would love to get a real pinball table. So I mean, if an opportunity came up for that, I would definitely use whatever expendable income I had to move towards something more along that lines than I would to continue buying Arcade1up cabinets. It doesn't mean I'm shifting interest away from it, but then if I buy a pinball cabinet and then I get really into that and I don't find myself going down to my arcade and appreciating my arcade as much, yeah, my interest could wane too.
So I have a different question for James, because I felt this and I wonder if it's part of it. It's this idea that, are there times in your life where, besides money, forget the idea, if you have a bad month or whatever, and obviously, unless you're going into debt, but hopefully we're more responsible than that. Is there
Mhm.
times in your life where you slow down on collecting? It's like you could have bought it because you got the money, but you
Right.
decided to slow down on collecting, and there's a reason why I asked that. What do you think?
Um, I wouldn't say that I necessarily slowed down on collecting. I have slower months than others. Just because the way toys are, especially
Mm,
being here in Florida, we're usually one of the last states to get the new toys. Obviously, the West Coast gets everything first, and then it makes its way over to the East and the South Coast. So, it just depends on what I can find in that particular month or those couple weeks. So that determines how much I buy in that month, but I wouldn't
I see.
necessarily say that I consciously, slow down. You just got to keep track of your finances and how much, affordable or disposable income you have to spend on your hobby. So I wouldn't even necessarily call this an addiction. I would call it a hobby more than anything else
Mm.
because, I could stop at any moment that if I needed to or if I wanted to, whereas an addiction, obviously you can't. So for me, it's more of a hobby than an addiction.
Well, that answers my question. Clearly, I have an addiction. I am a hoarder. And the reason why is because I find myself holding back almost like a self rehab, if you will. Like this, I gotta stop. I gotta stop. I gotta get better control over myself. I could afford it, but I decided not
But I
to.
mean, that's a good thing though. That's a
I guess
so
so.
so I would say that you have the self-control and that at least you're making the effort versus just dumping all your money and buying everything just because you can.
Yeah.
If you're doing it just because you can, then you have a little bit of an addiction. But the fact that you have that self-control, or at least you're working on it, that's a good thing, and it's more of just a hobby for you.
What do you think, Kong?
First path to recovery is acknowledgement, Justin. So well done
Mm.
to to know that you have that and can recognize it. This is why he asked all of us to come on,
I'm
is to
always on
really
the
have this
first step.
2-hour therapy session
Right.
Yeah,
about
this is an
his collection
intervention.
and make you feel
That's right.
I, I
better about yourself.
I was a little concerned this was an intervention. I'm not gonna lie.
It's a reverse. I was like, I'm gonna
Well,
pull
he
you
wanted
guys
to see
in.
he wanted to see how bad everybody else was. I'm sitting here playing with 3 different versions of Optimus Prime here because I had to have all 3 versions that are absolutely different. They're not the
Yeah.
same. They're all
Yeah,
made by
see that
different
one is
companies.
that cell shaded to look like almost like cartoonish.
Yeah, look at that,
Nice.
right? So this is what brings me joy. Do you know which ones each one is? Do you recognize this one?
Is that the
I
one
have
that
no
came out
idea.
like 12 years ago? 12,
No,
13
so
years ago?
this is so they've made so many versions of Optimus Prime. This
I
is
know.
a
Yeah.
it's a bootleg of Masterpiece 44 Optimus Prime, and then these two are actually made by third-party companies. They're not licensed at all by Hasbro, but they're amazing, different molds, but they're all similar size points. So, to your
Yeah.
point, toy collecting gets really, really hard because there's now different versions of each one, and it makes me want to
Yep.
get them all. And I've really had to
Yep.
stop because at one point I was like, "Oh, it's Optimus Prime. I have to get it," and it was like the shittiest Optimus Prime toy. Sorry for mentioning that, but I do have a couple that are terrible. But because it is said character, I was purchasing it. So there are those moments where I'm just
So
like, ugh.
so real question here. When they released they just did some G1 re-releases at
Mhm.
Walmart here in Canada. They were exclusive at Walmart. And when Optimus Prime came out, it was a bomb here. No one would buy it. And it was so disappointing because they didn't do it accurate. They did a G1 re-release, but he didn't come with his trailer.
Oh
Like,
no.
did you see that? Do you know what I'm talking about?
I didn't. It was an exact replica of G1, and it was just the cab portion.
I'll send you a picture of it later because I still
Okay.
have them in box, and it's just Optimus Prime but no trailer, and I'm like, that's not right. How can you
I
do a
think
reissue that's not right?
the worst one that I ever saw that I felt bomb was the Pepsi. Speaking of Pepsi, a Pepsi Prime. They made a version of G1 Prime, and the trailer was you're supposed to bring your own Pepsi bottle, and that's what the
Oh
cabinet
my
was. So
gosh.
Hmm.
super weird. But no, yeah, I haven't seen that. But yeah, the addiction for arcades for me has definitely waned. I am now
Mm.
being a lot more selective about what I'm excited about. I do have a full-size pinball machine that I got about just a year ago, Michael B.
That you
I
don't
feel
like.
I like it, but I feel guilty every day I don't play it
Mm.
because it costs so much. And so
I know.
sometimes I'll just walk by and look at it like, all right, I have to make sure I give this baby some love a little bit to justify my $6,000 purchase at the time, which was a good deal because it's more expensive now. I actually bought it right before some price increases.
Yeah, that's
But
the problem with
$6,000 is a lot.
that's the problem with pinball, like real pinball tables and stuff like that. You're like, hey, look, I've got a Toyota Corolla in my living room.
While
Yeah,
you're up,
yeah.
Michael B, we got a super chat. It says, what will Arcade1up do with the 3-game Dragon's Lair license as far as other form factors? They are rarely one and done. I think this guy, he's really hoping to get a very specific answer. And I think he might be a fan of Dragon's Lair. Not
I get the
100%
impression. I get the impression, and I apologize for answering this way. It's all going to depend on how it sells. I think what Arcade1up will do is they will sell the 3/4 scale cabinet, and depending on how well it'll do, maybe they would look at an option for a countercade. Maybe they will look at an option for a partycade. But I don't think we're going to get the Space Ace version that they originally talked about. I just don't think they got the fan interest that they put up on the page. So it's all going to depend on how it sells. It might be one and done if Dragon's Lair doesn't, sell out their big allotment. But, like Tron surprised them. Hopefully Dragon's Lair does as well. I have mine ordered. B-Kong has his. So there's 2 sold.
Yeah, it kind of made me think, Kong, you were showing those Transformers and how there's the 3 different versions. So does that mean you're going to buy the 3 different versions of the Capcom Legacy Edition that's coming out? I don't know if you know about this, James, but it's like Arcade1up. You may, as a collector, really like this. You like the Street Fighter. They now want you to buy all of them because they're coming out with, it appears to be, they come out with one per character. There's like a Yoga Flame coming out. I don't know if you guys know what the other versions were. That was the only one I caught.
Yeah, I saw those pictures. I didn't know if they were just like fan-made stuff or those were like legit coming out.
Yeah, there's no real pictures out. There was just like one mock-up that was done by your average
saw that
gamer.
one.
But otherwise, it's a Shinku Hadouken one, so some form of Ryu. That's Ryu special. So, and then otherwise, you'll see a Dalsim Yoga Flame themed.
Yeah, because if you're going to make a cabinet based on the most popular character, you're definitely going to do Dalsim, right?
Right?
Yeah.
Well,
I don't know. You have to be like a very specific fan of that character.
Yeah. Maybe they've done research. I think many of us have mentioned the idea that we know Arcade1up is totally going to Evo, and they're probably going to be launching these titles there. Like that, the connection just makes sense to me, right? And then so, are those like characters that would do well in that community, and because they're going after that crowd. Like I don't
UAG
know.
did say something in his video that sort of made sense. The 2 other big marquee titles in the SF collection is Champion Edition, Hyper, and then Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So his theory was the Yoga Flame would be the Hyper version of it because it's an orange marquee, and the Shinku Hadouken version would be the marquee with Super Street Fighter 2 Turbo. So I think that makes sense from having 2 different versions of cabs of which marquee you like better. Hyper Fighting, which is orange, or Super Street Fighter 2, which was like a blue type of thing. So I thought that actually kind of made sense. If they're going to be releasing 2 versions of the cab with all those games anyways, might as well have a different marquee, slightly different artwork. It might be even just be a big blue shape with the marquee and then maybe a side logo that's different, and they're calling it that version of it too. So I mean, the big blue was used often for those types of cabinets as well. So that's definitely a possibility in terms of shape.
Yeah. Well, that's exciting. It'll be exciting to cover it, but that's all the time we have for today. You don't have to go home, but you can't stay here. And a recommendation is to hop over to 19K Fox, who is live right now. I'm going to hit end on this broadcast. It should bring you right over there. The night is not over. Go check him out. Give him some love. Let him know that Console Kids and all the team here, Michael B, Kongs, and the Toy Room brought you guys there. And we'll see you guys